Committee Vice Chair.
And Mark Lorenz, School Committee Member.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of the minutes from our January 21st meeting. Those were in our Google Drive. Hoping everyone had a moment to review them. I wonder if there are any changes or additions. If not, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's passes unanimously. Thank you. Dr. Branco, correspondence?
None at this time.
Donations?
None at this time.
Personnel?
None at this time.
Okay, Charlie, now it's your turn to share the success. Go ahead.
Hello. Lots been happening. I've been trying some new ways to get information, because week by week I get, what's happening during the week, but I've been going to teachers and asking specifically what's happening, in your program, with Mr. Larson doing DECA. That's really big right now. With the DECA district competition, 14 students are moving on to state competition, and they're competing against 3,500 other students from Massachusetts. And then they'll be going on to the international competition in Atlanta. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. We've got two. We just had the Matilda, the middle school performed Matilda. I know you were in the band. And the high school Book of Everything starts on February 27th. For sports, girls basketball had a really strong season, and that's all for sports. I'm sure there's other things that happened in sports, but Spirit Day's coming up. We've got themes for each day, different events that are happening, and we just finished midterms. So it's been busy. It's been a busy couple months, but yeah.
And did you have a snow day?
Yes, we did. We had two.
And how was that?
It was pretty nice. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was good.
I bet people got an enormous amount of homework done, and people did books the whole time, right? Worked on literacy and numeracy.
Yes.
Hope everybody enjoyed it. And I would imagine we are really grateful to our property and maintenance folks and DPW, right? This is a shared effort.
And it's my understanding that it was a long time ago since we'd had that level of snowstorm.
I mean, there was
great response by the town.
There was so much snow, and then the next snow day we had, we were able to move around a little bit, and I was kind of blown away by how quickly they moved that amount of snow. It was so much snow. I know there's a new DPW building, so very grateful to them.
Thank you, Charlie. Unfinished business, Dr. Branco.
So after three, thank you. After three meetings where we've talked about the build of the FY27 budget, tonight is our opportunity to hold the actual public hearing on the proposed budget. School committee has publicly seen iterations of this 3 times at this point, and has had some time with the full PDF book. What we're going to do tonight, while it is a 50-page budget book, we are actually going to skip right through the pages here. And for lack of a better term, in some places we'll car wash a few things if we know it's redundant over time. And in other places we'll take a really nice slow look at it. I would encourage the committee, Madam Chair, to have kind of a fluid question and conversation as the pages as we go through, because I think that's probably the safest way to do this, so we don't have to store everything in our memory bank. Once we complete that, we'll open it up for public comment as part of the public hearing. Then the committee will come back to have kind of a final say, final comments and questions, and then ultimately take a vote on the proposed budget. So at this time, I'll have June Sanfilippo come up, and Jody Goodyew come up, and Anne-Marie Luster come up and sit in the hot seats in the event that we have questions that I'd much rather defer to. A couple of you already commented. I think the art department in this community is fantastically talented. They get unbelievable work out of our students, and we do ask a lot of them to get some work sent to us early in the year for this purpose. And I think it's really important that we're showcasing our students in every document in every possible way. So throughout this document, you'll see original artworks done by our students K to 12, and then you'll see as many photos as I could get into the document of kids in real time, you know, in lots of different examples academically and educationally. So thank you to the staff who've helped us put that together. Thank you to the students who've participated by providing the work. I think it's important for the community to hear this. I know the committee knows this already, that, you know, this letter from the committee chair and myself every year gets kind of recrafted based on the new committee, based on the work that we're doing. And Chairwoman Oakes has spent a lot of time putting this together. And I really just sort of brancoed it up in the end to make sure some of the numbers are correct and some of the other stuff is in there. But it's really the voice of the committee and a little bit of the voice of the leadership team to really reach out to the community and just let you know how proud of the work we are, how difficult the work has been to get to this year. I feel like I've been saying that for a while now, but we've come out the other end in a really secure way with a strong school district that's really poised to meet the needs of kids. In this first letter, bolded about halfway down or a little beyond that, you'll see that the proposed budget number is right in there at $17,728,329, with a 3% increase appropriation of $14,627,894, and that's based off an adjusted FY26 town appropriation, based on the fact that the town DPW will be taking over some of the cost of certain services next year. And so as we get through the budget book, that will be more heavily explained so that the community will understand that that's bolded on purpose with a reference to page 26, so that when we get to that point, they can kind of take a look at that for themselves. On page 3, again, everything we do in the district is really codified by either our SDI, our Strategy for District Improvement, or our budget. And so I just wanted to include the front page as we do every year so that people understand that we have a solid mission and vision in place. We have some core values that are really representative of the work that we do in the district, and that we continue to have strong strategic objectives around focusing on growth and achievement for students, having impactful professional development to make our educators better tomorrow than they are today for the sake of kids, and ultimately maintaining comprehensive programming in a small and powerful school district. So those remain our strategic objectives over time. And then if you dig into the SDI on the website, you'll see that all of those are spelled out with a lot of hows and whats throughout the document. Some of us love the infographic. This is an updated version of our infographic, kind of a one-stop shopping just to tell you what's going on in our district, focusing on the whole student, lots of focus on social emotional learning over the past couple of years. You've heard this. We've talked about win blocks and meeting kids and giving them what they need. We have over 50 clubs and activities across the district. We have 50%. This is an amazing stat. 50% of our students participating in performing arts. I think I've said this in another venue. 100 years ago, when I was a band director at the high school, middle school level, we were told that if you had 10% of student population performing, that was supposed to be a rigorous program. And we have 50% of kids performing. That's fascinating to me as a fine arts person and as a school and district leader. So really proud of that. To balance that off, we've talked a lot about gateway programming, computer science, engineering, biomedical programming. We've done a lot of work in our engineering and STEM programming over time, and we'll talk a little bit in this meeting and particularly in subsequent meetings about history and English language arts and how we want to make sure that we're continuously growing in all areas to provide comprehensive programming. Really proud of our class of 26 data, talking about where they've gone to school and how they're being college and career and service ready. So those numbers are at the top as well. And we'll dig into a little bit more of that tonight and in future meetings as well. Page 6 and 7. We've spent some time with in past meetings, so just for the people who are visiting tonight's meeting for the first time or watching it, these are some good cheat sheets to just let you know who the school budget represents. It represents that one constituent of human beings in our town who can't vote. And it spells out the components of the school budget, the operating budget and the capital improvement budget. And what you're hearing about tonight is the operating budget. Talks a little bit about the budget process and how we've used a zero-based budgeting process, which is not always done in public finance. And then a quick little cheat sheet on how to understand the budget, that the town's contribution really makes up about 85% of our budget. The school reserve, which we'll talk about in a little while, makes up about 15%. And then we also have user fees and grants, federal, state, as well as other agencies, including local philanthropists who have helped to offset some of the costs of our educating our youth. Talk a lot every year about the great partnership that we have with the Town of Rockport Technology Department. I will not read this entire list, and I'm also aware, as I work closely with Monty and his team, that this is not an exhaustive list. This is basically, I think, his high-level bulleted list that I got to fit on one page. But it's just meant to be a sample to show you how efficient we can be when we have partnerships between the town side and the school district side, and how supportive that department is. This is my 6th school district in 32 years, and I've never worked in a district where we have been in a position to ask for something and receive it almost every single time. And Monty and his team are purposely in tune with education and purposely understand the connection between 21st century learning and the work we're trying to do. So thank you to Monty and his team. And please take the time to take a look at what is new this year and what are the recurring supports. That if that partnership was not there, our budget would look drastically different, or the services we could provide kids would look drastically different. And I'll keep going unless you all unmute yourselves and ask questions. Page 9 just provides a cheat sheet. A lot of these you've now seen in slide decks in previous meetings. The change here, because I think on camera we actually had a conversation that was a bit confusing, right, about the general expense line and about the partnership that we're forging ahead with the Town Public Works Department. So what you're going to see as you go through page by page is literally highlighted numbers with a highlighted description. And the description is almost the same on every page with a little bit of a tweak based on the line item. Just to spell out to you that for historical purposes, June built the budget and our spreadsheets to include all of these costs as if the school district was still going to cover them. If we pulled it out, you'd see zeros and you'd see really inaccurate historical comparisons. And we struggled with that, obviously, 2 weeks ago. So we spent a lot of time working on that. We also met with Mitch and Carrie Arnaud in my office, along with June, and the 4 of us met to really workshop how this would make sense to us in a public way. So what you're seeing when you see the yellow numbers is what the cost would be for us to continue to carry it. And that will be true as we move to subsequent pages. And the caveat is at the end, you're going to see that total amount that the Town Public Works Department is taking over listed as an offset. So if I know you've looked ahead a little bit, but this for the audience's perspective, I want that to be pretty clear. Page 10, 11, and 12, and I'll go back to 10 for us, spell out our programmatic and staffing priorities that are really attached to the budget work we're doing. I think I said in one of our past meetings recently that it's really refreshing and enlightening to not have pages named how to close the budget gap. Those were the worst pages I think any of the professionals in this room ever had to write or be part of making decisions related to. So this is the first year 4 in my tenure that we haven't had to have those kind of pages in a budget book like this. That's because we've done hard work that was supported by you all in the community and the staff of the school district. So while we did have to make 32 positional cuts over 3 years to the tune of $3 million, that has put us in a position where on relative financial stable ground at this point in time. And we can really flip the script and focus on teaching and learning and focusing on growth and achievement, supporting instructional practices and programming. So what you see here are the major budgetary connections to moving that work forward. So we've talked about all of these, but I will just read quickly so that the audience hears them for the first time. Talking about expanding our intensive learning program at the elementary school, which allows us to keep some of our most needy and challenged academically or socially emotionally students in the district, in their hometown, going to school with their peers. That is a big win for us and for those families and for those students. So thank you to Anne Marie and her staff for making that happen in the first year, this year, and then figuring out quickly that we need to be a little iterative over time based on who our students are by name and need. Also, they're talking about reallocating special education specialized staff, and what that means, if you're not in the work, is that we have people with specific skill sets, and we need to redeploy them better and more efficiently and more strategically to meet the needs of kids. And so we're going to have those conversations with those particular staff members at the school level and figure out what the best way to meet student needs are, using the skill sets that we have in place in a more efficient way than we're doing it this year. Jody had talked about at our last meeting the adoption and implementation of new social emotional learning screeners along with Anne-Marie and district-wide curriculum. You've heard about this for a little while. This is not easy. Social emotional learning, I feel like, is not is historically ingrained in the world of curriculum development and in the world of implementation, and a lot of districts have either taken their time on it or tried to sort of create it themselves. And so we're in a position now where this is really important for us to have a really legitimized screener to understand the needs of our kids and some kind of focused curriculum to support them in these areas. So I'll take a pause on those just to see if anybody has comments or questions one more time on these while everybody's sitting at the table. Okay. Jody talked in the last couple of meetings about the expansion of our computer science and engineering programs, that we have these full course offerings at the high school, and then middle school course offerings, and then we are adding, am I correct, a 3-year progression of middle school course offerings, and you can see that spelled out in the new school year, 26-27, and then 27-28 and 28-29 with automation and robotics, medical detectives, and design and modeling, all at the middle school level, so that by the time they hit high school, they've got some foundational work done. We're having great conversations about elementary as well. You know, we have had some donations come in and some people supporting the work at that level, and so we have staff and leadership ready to say, like, how early is right. So can we get our kindergartners all the way to 5th grade doing this kind of work? And we had Mr. Swanson in here not long ago showing our elementary students off a little bit, to show what they can do at their level. And I dare I say, I think it's just going to get more and more interesting to see what the younger students can do and how early and often they can demonstrate success in this area. We continue to refine the budget to make sure we have a robust budget for curriculum review and adoption. I had Jody's job in another district. It's not easy to manage curriculum review and adoption. It's not easy to manage the negotiations and the pay structures with large companies around 3, 4, 5-year contracts to put the right resources in the hands of students and teachers. And I often used to equate it to having 2 or 3 car payments at a time in your driveway. And, you know, once one car payment falls off, miraculously, don't you suddenly need another car? Somebody in your house becomes of age of driver, or you just need it because it died once you finally owned it. And so similarly, Jody and the leadership team are trying to manage that with great curriculum leaders around how can we always have enough money to keep the cars running in our driveway, to have the right cars in the driveway, and to make sure our kids and teachers have appropriate resources. And that's not easy with a limited budget. And we have added to that budget, but if I asked her, honestly, she'd tell me it's not big enough. So, you know, we're trying to do the best we can there, and I'm really proud of the work we have done. It's also true when it comes to professional development. So Amy Rose takes the lead on professional development, and then Jody and leadership team members chime in along the way, and we all kind of group think that work a little bit and really decide what's best for the school district. We put ourselves in a position, and Amy just sent this email out, where we have teachers teaching teachers, hopefully, with lots of teachers coming to play last year to lead this work. We have consultants coming in. We have in-house professional development. We have mandated professional development, but all of this with the intent of professional staff adding to their toolbox, adding to their skill sets, adding to their knowledge base. And so we've taken professional development seriously this year. We have a partnership with SNHU that I think we've talked to you a little about, and Jody and I are offering a graduate course in district right now that the two of us are co-teaching. We have 10 or 11 participants in the district already signed up for that course. And so we really feel like that we can move this work forward. You've heard Jody talk about our specialists who are in PLCs across the North Shore with specialists from other districts, music teachers, art teachers, PE and health teachers, who are doing PD collaboratively with other districts. They don't have colleagues. Those are often onesies and twosies in a small district like this where they don't have a big department to learn and grow with. So I appreciate the fact that we've taken that initiative and that Jody and the team decided how important it was for those colleagues to get out there. So money well spent in curriculum review and adoption and in professional development. We know that teachers and adults, particularly who work in schools, are the number one most influential driver in success for students. And then right behind the person is the stuff that we support them with. And so that's why this is an important conversation to have. Thoughts or questions on this page? We've talked a lot about expanding our online learning opportunities and course offerings. And so we continue to look at that. We're going to continue to discuss programmatic and facility redesigns at our middle and high school library. And then we are happy to be able to expand the acceleration supports at the elementary level, particularly with a math acceleration specialist. I think Jody talked about this at our last meeting, about that will bring us up to 2 literacy specialists and 2 math specialists, so that we'll be able to service a consistent percentage of students from both disciplines. That's a huge win, and Amy and I met with Board of Selectmen last night to give an update on the state of the school district, so to speak. And one of the things we talked about is that hyper focus on literacy and numeracy, and how we can be really proud of our 98% graduation rate and having over 10 AP courses and over 50 offerings in honors and a wide array of electives. But at the end of the day, if we have kids who are reading or mathematically below grade level, that is the number one predictor for success or lack thereof after high school. Not where they went to college, not how many AP classes they took. So that's an important thing that the state needs to really wrap their head around, and I'd prefer that we are a leader in that work over time, and clearly exceeding the state. So that's a daunting goal, but we are attaching children's names and needs to that. Any thoughts on that page? Good? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a thought in general, just thinking about, the strategy for district improvement that you showed earlier, the three objectives on that: the growth and achievement for students, impactful professional practice, and the programming, comprehensive programming. Looking through these priorities, the 9 or 10 of them that you listed, I think really hits those 3 objectives, really spot on. So it's really nice to see that we've been able to do that this year, and focusing on that next year.
Thank you.
Coming up, yeah.
Page 13, 14, 15 will step us, and 16 really will step us through student enrollment data and demographics. Always a interesting conversation in Rockport when we talk about student enrollment, and we talk about the size of our school district, and we talk about long-term viability. And I will start with the same belief system that I put out there every time, that I personally care less that we have 500 versus 5,000 students. I care more that we are meeting the needs of every student that we are charged to educate. With that said, this is our current enrollment snapshot as of the 23rd of January, so pretty fresh, with 629 students pre-K to 12 in district. That does not include our 20 out-of-district placements, for a total of 649 students that we are responsible for educating. Really proud of families that choose Rockport, and this is the term I think I used with the school, with the select board, last night, when we talk about choice. While we understand that Rockport is the public school for the community, that doesn't mean families don't necessarily have choice. So people choose to stay here, they choose to live here, they choose to send their kids here, and I think that's a powerful way to view it. We also have 23% of our district made up of students of choice from other communities, and you'll see that on page 15. Beverly, Gloucester, Ipswich, Lynn, Manchester, and Peabody, the greater majority from Gloucester. And, when Charlie talks about a snow day, and we talk about meeting the needs of students, we have to be super cognizant of where our students are from, what their needs are and aren't, everything from can they get here for school that day with a snowstorm to what are our demographics and what are our family needs based on where our kids are growing up and coming from. So this is our school choice data kind of pulled out for you so you can see receiving numbers and sending numbers. And you can see that we have 40 Rockport students who are at school choicing to other locations. Again, 23 out to Gloucester with smaller numbers to Hamilton, Wenham, Ipswich, and Manchester, Essex. We've talked about this publicly before, and I'd be happy to have this as a deeper conversation at another time if people want to have an enrollment conversation. But in past years, we've talked about how choice in and choice out is really a family choice, and it's dependent on needs. It could be driven by athletics. It could be driven where parents work. It could be driven by historical data from the family. You know, I went to a private school or to that particular school as a choice student, and that's where my kids will go. So when we try to tease out the real data for who stays and who doesn't, you know, we've talked as a leadership team about can we do a better job of codifying that information, probably, but we'll continue to dig into it to the best of our ability. But we're really proud of the students that we have here and of meeting the needs of our families. And we hope every year that as many of them as possible choose Rockport Public Schools. And then page 16 has the data from DESE, from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, just to show you what our student characteristics are according to the state. And then I've just given you, if you're interested in the actual definitions, the definitions for first language, not English, English learners, low income, and how that's a little different demographic and what high needs students are. So this just helps us have a snapshot of who our students are and how best we can meet their needs. So any thoughts, comments, questions about student enrollment characteristics data?
I think you're right. We have had discussion in the past about looking more into maybe why why families choose a different place than Rockport. I think it would also be equally interesting to know why kids are coming to Rockport and what makes families choose to come to Rockport, and what are our strengths, or what are those things that we're doing really well that attract
That's
students.
probably easier to collect.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great comment.
So that would be interesting to me as a school committee member. It may be helpful to us.
On the chart with the school choice numbers.
Yep.
When you look at that chart, I think it's a little deceiving from just looking at that briefly. We've had conversations with our school committee when we talk about school choice number. So I'm wondering if you can just kind of reiterate how we determine those school choice numbers and why at some levels we cap those numbers so we don't have,
Right.
If you can just expand
Yeah.
on that, I think it'd be an important.
So interestingly, on March's agenda will be a discussion around next year's recommendation from the leadership team for school choice. So while we have a new policy around class size that gives the district a little flexibility, we also know that there are best practices. And so the conversation we had as a committee was that we were going to continue to honor best practices in any and all possibility. So what we really do is we look at current enrollment. And so, for example, let's say we're comfortable with 21 students in a classroom at the elementary level beyond kindergarten. We have 2 teachers. We know that. We cut that number right in half. If we had 5 less students than that number in the previous grade, we can open up 5 seats. We also know, right, that the 8th grade is our bubble year with 59, I think, students in it, ish, right? 59-ish students. And so we know when you have bubble years with large numbers, maybe that's a year where 56, thank you. Hopefully that, yeah. Unless 3 just moved in that I don't know about. So 56 students. The high school, because of their scheduling and their rotation, actually has a greater capacity to handle a larger number of students than the middle school and the elementary, because that's more of a fixed rotation, right? We don't have electives, and we don't have certain kids in larger classes and smaller classes like we do at the high school. So we really look at what that cut line is, Mark, and decide what's our capacity. And every year we open up seats in some and not in others.
Right. So it's a very thoughtful decision. It's not just
Right.
accepting
Yep.
whatever number applies for school choice. We have to
Yep.
really think about how it's going to affect the students we have and how that's going
Yeah.
to affect the programming.
And we'll talk about this more in depth next month. But the other thing to keep in mind is as we've reduced staff, for example, at the elementary school, we used to divide the number by 3 to get to our class size. Now we divide a number by 2, which automatically means we're going to accept less numbers of school choice kids in certain grade levels over time from a historical standpoint. But percentage-wise, we've hovered around 23 to 25% of our enrollment for quite a long time. Yep. So on page 17, we talk a little bit about future budget considerations. I've moved the focus on recruiting, hiring, and retaining high-quality staff to the top bullet purposefully. It's the most important thing we do, is to put the right adults in our schools every single day to meet the needs of our kids and our families. We've had in different versions, either one-on-one, two-on-one, full committee walkthroughs with select board members, with parents, with people who are engaged in community relations through Jody's office or other ways. We've had lots of people talk about the modernized learning environment and what that looks like, from outdoor learning spaces to our internal learning spaces. And I don't foresee us being in a position where we're going to be going to the MSBA and to the town and saying, can you build new buildings? I see us using the MSBA, CIPC, and other mechanisms as ways to maintain and enhance our two buildings. That doesn't mean we can't provide kids with modern learning environments. And so that needs to be a really high focus for us when you talk about kids staying in district, when you talk about what people believe a modern classroom should look like or shouldn't look like. That's an important driver. And when we ask teachers to do high quality instruction and to do authentic learning that connects to the real world, it's hard to do that if they're in a learning environment that doesn't reflect the real world, or it still looks like a 1982 or 1975 classroom that some of us were in. So that's an important bullet, and I haven't teased that out from a financial standpoint necessarily. I just wanted it in the budget book as a particular driver. We're going to leave consistent and systemic curriculum review and adoption in there. We're going to leave academic programming in there, as it's all important for maintaining competitive and preparing our students for college, career, and service. And the focus on academic, social, and emotional programming has to be important today. It has to be. If human beings don't feel good socially and emotionally, they don't produce at work, they don't produce at school, they don't function well in life. That's a major shift over the past 25 or 30 years in education. And there are a lot of adults who just didn't grow up in that kind of environment and don't necessarily understand the importance of that. So we have to kind of reteach people some of that. And so then our conclusionary statement is here that it connects, as Mark said, it connects our strategy for district improvement to the budget. And hopefully we've done our job well enough that other people recognize what Mark just said out loud. I believe this section of the book also was embedded in the past couple of meeting slide decks. So just for the people who are seeing it for the first time, these are overviews, historical overviews of different buckets in the budget, so you can see what that's looked like over time. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year overview of our salaries and wages broken out by big lines, so you can take a look at what that's looked like over time. With roughly, $1 million in growth over time, which is, it's a lot of money, but it's percentage-wise really not a massive growth. A lot of that has been managed by reducing $3 million over the past 3 years. Page 20, this is where you'll see a highlight under our line item expenses. So the buildings and grounds line and the transportation line that are both highlighted at $773,800 and $25,000. Those numbers, again, were created. June's inserted them into the book to represent the real cost, with a projected real cost for FY27. Embedded in those two numbers, the total, you can see it here, of $558,100. That's the total that's going to be transferred to the town DPW to cover these costs in the future, which is costs they cover, by the way, for every other department in the town. We were the only town department not having this covered already. So that's why this is the right time to make this happen. So what's happening is the money in there, $558,000 of it is embedded in that number that you'll see come out at the end.
And I have a question
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Those two together are 700 $98,800,
Yep.
but only $558,100 is going over.
Yep.
That means some of that money will remain in the school department budget
Correct.
for things other than transportation, fuel, and
So
La,
basic
la, la.
maintenance, custodial supplies, clothing allowances, et cetera, the basic
thank you,
of custodial needs will remain in our budget.
thank you.
So when you take a look at page 22 and 23, thank you to Jody, Emery, and whoever else has really recreated this page. This page is difficult, I think, to capture sometimes in a clean way. So you can see at the top what the historical review is of our federal grants and how that rolls forward year after year. Then you can see the competitive grant section coming from DESE and privates, as well as some earmarked awards. And then down at the bottom, you can see the Executive Office of Education Fair Share earmark, which was going specifically to the roof, the portion of the roof replacement at the middle high school. And so this page basically gives you an overview of the amount of money that comes in that's not taxpayer appropriated that helps to supplement our budget. This is the real cost of education. So you take these numbers, you add them to the appropriation and any other offsets that we have, and that's really the total budget number.
I have a question here. Have the numbers gone down over the past 5 years because enrollment has declined, or have the numbers gone down because there are fewer dollars to go around, or maybe a little bit of both?
It's definitely based on enrollment.
Page 23, then you'll see, again, I'm not sure in any of my previous districts that we've even had a section in a budget book for private donations. So it's the uniqueness of Rockport and the community support. So this just lays out that we happen to have had a very gracious, generous donor who's supporting our STEM initiatives, grade 5 through 12, and that they've committed to $100,000 over a 5-year period of time here, and what that is going to support. You can also see the revenues from tuition, and because we don't know what that number is yet until the school year is complete from preschool, that we'll have that number probably at the end of the school year, or minimally when June closes out end of year and she gives you an update on end of year, sometime either in this probably next fall by the time we have all those numbers crunched. And then ultimately the revenue from athletics, and we put committed to the budget in here on purpose. And we'll continue to have conversations. I think I said this at our last meeting, that we'd like to talk about user fees. We'd like to talk about the money that comes in and out through athletics and other mechanisms that are really paid for by families. So this just gives you a little bit of a historical relevance.
And if I may, y'all can tell me to stop if you want, but it seems to me that each year at town meeting, the question of athletic fees comes from the floor, and it's an interesting question. In a perfect world, students would not pay any fees to participate in extracurricular programs or athletics. Could one fabulous donor make a $34,000 donation and wipe out all of the athletic fees for children in Rockport Public Schools? Is that literally all it would take? Theoretically, would one
Theoretically,
donation
some
take care of
years
every
this is-
child?
It could help. It would certainly help and reduce it, that's for sure. The amounts are our best estimate. In some years, we receive more
Sure.
in user and gate fees. In some years, we receive less, but we have been able to maintain our user fees for many years without increases.
Thank you.
So other sources that we know of that would come in are special ed circuit breaker, school choice, choice direct bill back. I think June was asked about that at a previous meeting. Our when you talk about user fees, our transportation user fees, bus fees, and ultimately the Medicaid reimbursement, which is like 2 years in arrears, correct? So I feel like that number doesn't come in until the following year.
It's as it happens.
Right.
So like this year, we're still, they just asked for us for data for the quarter ending December 31st. And then they send funds. And those are town funds, by the way. They do not go to the school. They go directly to the town.
Yep. So I feel like this is the important page. for both the committee, the leadership team, and the public to understand. This is the snapshot. This is the one pager that gives you kind of that 10,000-foot view. It shows you the cost centers from district, elementary, middle, high, special education, student services, athletics, operations, maintenance, and transportation. And it shows you those buckets from salaries, from expenses. It totals it up, and it shows us what the percentage of the increase is. And so that number to the far right, a quarter of the way down, 17,728,329. That's how we get the total cost, the projected cost of doing business next year. For reference sake, right under that, we have the FY26 gross budget at just under 17 million, with a percentage increase of 4.37. Here's where we have to pay attention to the new DPW transfer. So traditionally, we have all of the typical offsets listed: athletic gate receipts, athletic user fees, transportation user fees, et cetera, all the way down to school choice. After meeting with Mitch and Carrie and after workshopping the best way to put this out to make it make sense to everybody, that $558,100, which is the amount of money that will be transferred, is listed as an offset to show everybody cleanly how we get to our final operating budget of our final town contribution ask of $14,627,894. What's difficult is when you look at that number compared to the FY26 gross budget of just under 17 million, it's not an increase, it's a substantial decrease. So in order to have good historical relevance and to not be disingenuous with the percentage growth, we then show you in the bottom section what that FY26 town contribution was, 14,745,139. Then we've taken out the real costs of OMR, fuel, power, vehicle, and transportation expenses from FY26, which is 543,300, to come to what we're calling an adjusted town contribution. Now we can compare apples to apples, and it's not apples to oranges anymore. So if we had pulled it out last year, we pull it out this year, it's really a 3% increase. So that when someone says, it looks like you're asking for a 3% increase, but it looks like the operating budget is under that number from last year, we need it to be really clear to people who are going to help us tell this story and who are going to help make decisions that we're trying to show an apples-to-apples comparison. And again, Mitch and Carrie and June and I had a pretty long meeting to really workshop this, come up with the best way to demonstrate this on one page. And that's why we wanted the yellow all the way through the budget book for those of us who could reference the yellow highlighted information all the way through. I'm almost done. The other reason it's important to do it this way is if we don't do it this way, then next year it's going to look like we're asking for 7% or 8% from the town, and we're certainly not.
So let's see if I understand. This year we need to show the budget with and essentially we're showing both years with and without that transfer. Next year, when we look back, I feel like we're going to have highlighted budget books for a while, at least because if we look back 5 years, we'll have highlighted budget books back 5 years until finally this transfer situation passes out of the historical window and everyone has sort of caught up and acclimated to the new school district budget without those costs. And on the flip side, I would assume the town of Rockport budget might have some yellow in it as well, so that everybody looking at that doesn't suddenly think,
That they just
why
upped
did
their
that
budget."
just grow $500 and something thousand?
Correct.
So wouldn't it be great if when we explain this to the public, one person stood up and said, here's the yellow that left the school department, and then somebody would stand up from the town and say, here's the yellow that came into the town's budget, right?
Right.
And I say that just because I think of trying to explain this on the floor at town meeting.
Yep. And
so may the force be with you and Mitch, because I think it's critical that people understand. And but people are smart, and I think they understand shifting costs.
Yeah, and I also think, because again, I feel like we've had this conversation in different ways, but not as public as we're having it tonight. The other thing that's really important for people in the community to hear are two things. One, we are We are a department of the town. We can't decide, the collective, we cannot decide that that's true when it's convenient and not true when it's not convenient, regardless of whether or not we're the biggest department. And what I mean by that is we shouldn't remain the only department in the town not having this cost covered that way. The second part of this that Mitch and I have talked a lot about is there will be efficiencies. There will be efficiencies in spending. There will be efficiencies in bidding on contracts. There will be efficiencies in how we get the work done. We're already discussing facilities assessments as a community and as a town at the leadership level instead of in silos. And I think you're going to get cost savings and resource efficiencies when you do that work. So just like I spent a little bit of time talking about the technology partnership, it's important to understand that this town's already proven we can do this well. This is just another opportunity to do it. And, this could be phase one of a multi-year program, or it could be that this is how we do it for a little while. But I'm really, really proud to say that, Mitch and I, Carrie and June, putting ourselves in the same room and making sure that the two leaders of one of the community and one of the school district are coming together administratively to look out for the taxpayer costs and efficiencies. That's an important thing, and I hope people understand why we do it.
I think part of what we're seeing is exactly what we talk about as the school committee when we put those articles up on the front page of In the Loop. When we say it's possible to be small and smart and strategic and innovative, and that's the only way to survive as you get smaller. And so we also say it in the letter at the front of this book. We've covered a lot of ground. We've made a lot of progress with this budget, with the financial situation for our schools, but more remains to be done. And this is the kind of work that I think we absolutely have to be doing. And I hope that it is sort of a beacon, for other folks that we ought to be able to collaborate, and we ought to be able to work together to find ways to be as efficient as we can, because that's what it takes to maintain a school system in a multi-generational community, which is what we believe we should be. So thank you for pushing, and thank you for the time it takes to figure out how to document it, and thank you for however much time it's going to take to make sure everybody truly understands throughout this spring.
So the next page is, obviously, as you all know, we'll break this out, but before I move, are there questions about this or about this makes as much sense as it can, hopefully? Okay. So then I won't spend a lot of time on each page, but just for the people who are seeing this for the first time, just to understand that what you see on the following pages here are the breakdowns of the overview. So you see the administrative line items, labor, expenses, office expenses, total expenses, professional development, all the way to the bottom, with the differences and the cost over time. Similarly, you see that from the elementary school budget. You see the same thing in the middle high school budget, special education and student services. And then operations and maintenance, again, you'll see the yellow highlight in here to show the vehicle line and the total fuel and power line. You see the zeros, which is kind of a strange thing to see in a spreadsheet. Because that 531,600 is being transferred, that's really going to be up to the town administrator and the DPW director to decide in the town's budget how they would like to divvy those out in which lines. So we didn't feel it was appropriate for us to haphazardly assign those numbers. Even though we have historical relevance, it's going to change once it's managed at the town level. Again, under transportation, the same thing. You'll see the $25,000 in there. And again, you'll see zeros under fuel, maintenance, and bus for the same reason. And then on page 33, you'll see the total expenditure, less the revenue and the transfers, and then our final budget request for the town. Any other thoughts or questions on that from the committee? And then at the end, for anybody who's interested, the appendix has the New England School Development Council, that is NESDEC, who we partner with in a lot of ways, and they have provided our 2025-26 enrollment projection report based on data we give them, based on data that they call from the town and the region and New England in general. And there's a lot of information in here with some great shots of kids. So if you don't want to look at the data, look at the pictures of kids. They're fantastic.
I always want to point out when you get to page 38 that Rockport is actually above the projected enrollment given to us by the consultants. And so the numbers are they make you uneasy, but as you look out more than 3 or 4 years, projections get weaker and weaker. And so I think it's critical that we have this and that we continue to update and work with the organization to get the information, but also that we continue to breathe when we look at this information.
And we have enrollment markers that we know are relatively or almost 100% consistent. We know, and we'll talk about this at our next meeting, that our allotment of seats at Essex Tech is 5. So that we know that there's a high likelihood that as many as 5 students will go from 8th grade to 9th grade at Essex Tech. We could have none some years, but we do know from a budgetary standpoint and an enrollment standpoint that it could be as high as 5. We have a pretty good history of how many students technically or traditionally go out to private schools at 2 major points, 5th grade to 6th grade, because some of the private schools have expanded to middle school, and again 8th grade to 9th grade for those that want to send kids for high school. We have pretty solid historical data. We know families and trends. So it's not perfect, but again, when you look at it, that's information that's not necessarily teased out by a NASDAQ study or by any other entity. That's your in-house data that you have to look at. We also know that while we have a certain number of homeschool students on those other pages, that when a student hits a certain age, in order to continue to participate in programming in the school district, they then have to enroll. Because after the age of 15, the law doesn't actually require students to go to school, believe it or not. So, unless I have my data wrong, I think it's the age of 15. Yes, 16, thank you. So I need you to just tell me I'm wrong. So, the age of 16, thank you. Not that proud, I need you to tell me. So, right, age of 16, thank you. And so that we know that, you know, if we have students who are homeschooled who are taking advantage of either athletic programming or fine arts programming or any other programming, that they will wind up enrolled. And again, that can be 1 or 2 kids every couple of years. It does not take a lot of students to move the needle when you have, you know, under 700 students. That's why we don't love percentages all the time. That's why we like to talk about numbers. That's all I have.
Okay. Comments from the committee. You can breathe for a minute. Thoughts or comments? This is the 3rd or 4th meeting we've spent talking about this. Much of this is not new to us, but before we see if anyone from the audience wants to jump in with public comment, anything on your minds?
I just wanted to thank everyone for the work in putting this together, Mark and the whole Atten team. This is kind of the behind the scenes work that people don't see unless they happen to attend these meetings or be watching us on TV. And I know there's a lot of people that have to wear a lot of hats. For example, we don't have grant writers. We don't have a dedicated grant writer in the district, so a lot of people have to chip in and do all kinds of roles to make this happen and all of these behind the scenes things happen. So thank you.
At the beginning, you mentioned the art. And because I've seen this presentation now several times, I took a minute to really enjoy the art. And I think the art and the photography in this are absolutely amazing. I was at one of America's most gigantic art museums in New York City this week, and I see pieces of art in here, not just from high school students, but I see one in here from a 2nd grader. It's really, really pretty incredible to see the work that kids do. And so this is a great way to highlight it. Hundreds of people will see this if they choose to read the budget book. It speaks to how creative we are. And somewhere in one of our documents, we talk about being a place for creatives. And that's what this is. And you see it. You see the music, you see the art, you see the athletics and the extracurriculars. And so I think the document itself is quite good. And it's just really wonderful to see the faces and the work of students reflected here, because they are the whole point. I believe this concludes the official hearing?
Yep.
All right, and that brings us to public comment. And if anybody would like to comment, I am to remind people that people are welcome to come and sit. We listen, but we do not respond. But we're happy to hear public comment, and anybody who would like to is welcome. This is called wait time. All right. Hearing none, I believe that we can move to a vote. At this time, I would accept a motion to approve the FY27 budget as presented by Dr. Branco.
So moved.
Second?
Do we do a roll call vote or do we just vote? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all opposed? All right. That is a unanimous vote to support the FY27 budget. Dr. Branco and team, thank you very, very much. We understand it's a big lift, and it's thoughtful. It's student-focused. Thank you all very
So
much.
our next steps, I think we're already looking to schedule select board finance meetings soon. I think I saw an email come into my inbox recently about telling me to hold about 17 days in a row. I'm exaggerating, but I know that we haven't settled on a date yet. I believe then there'll be engagement with FinCom. The leadership team and I, in different ways, will make sure we engage with the community however we need to make sure people understand. This book, the bottom of the book will be changed to reflect that it is the approved proposed budget. Amanda will do her magic and turn it into a real bound book. You'll have your copies. There'll be copies sent to Select Board, FinCom, Town Hall. There'll be copies in the public library. And then we always make them available in hard copy to anybody who wants a hard copy to come pick up, and we'll make sure that gets out there. And then the PDF will be uploaded to the website as well. So as anybody who wants to be able to comb through the 50 pages is welcome to do so however they need to.
All right. New business, Dr. Branco.
We have none. We're going to save it all for March.
All right. Finance, I think we've killed that tonight.
Yep.
School committee discussion. School committee members.
I just want to touch back on Matilda that Charlie brought up. I got a chance to go see that. My daughter sat still the entire time, which if you know her, that is a feat in and of itself. She loves Matilda already, so for her to see that in her own school, she was like amazed that the girl that was Matilda sounded just like her from the movie. And Trunchbull, oh my God, was so funny. They just were, it was incredible to see that, especially at the level. It looked more like a high school production than a middle school. It was amazing. We really enjoyed it. So looking forward to Book of Everything.
I would just share that, as Dr. Branco said, we had a visit last night with Select Board, and on behalf of all of us, I talked about a couple of things, and I thought maybe I should tell you what we talked about so you know what we said. First thing I said was that we really appreciated being invited even to come to Select Board, because we really do care about communication, community engagement. We were grateful to be there. And then I talked about the three real things that I think we might all say. We're optimistic about our schools, and we're committed to the longevity of our schools. And I think I said that twice, because I think people really need to hear that. As I've been out and about collecting, talking in the community about the upcoming election, I've actually had people ask, where do you stand on the future of our schools? So I thought it was important to say that. The other thing that I said to Select Board is we will always be attentive to enrollment, right? We get that. We are paying attention to that. We're pleased that after right-sizing, schools are properly staffed. and that there are actually more programs now, perhaps for kids, than there were 3 years ago. And then finally, we focus on growth and achievement for every single student. That's really what matters, and our job is to watch out for that and to keep the system focused on that. So we had about 7 minutes. I talked a little bit. Dr. Branco talked. There were 1 or 2 questions, and then we were freed, the way we freed Charlie, and we went on with our evening. But it was great to be there, and it just makes me think about how we are out and about. So I just want to share that with you. The other thing I noticed is that we have had information from MASC about the Day on the Hill. That's in your email. Good job, right? Yep. Yep. And Jess and I attended Day on the Hill last year. It was excellent. It's fascinating. You learn a lot. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me was to hear the head of the Senate and the House Education Committees look at the school committee members and say, thank you for what you do. Because what you do is challenging. It can be controversial. It can be difficult, and it's time consuming. So we drove to Boston. We had sort of a free breakfast, and we learned stuff, and we felt pretty good. And then we had this fabulous lunch in the rotunda that had been catered by all of the students in the area culinary programs in the technical high school. So it is a great day, and it's coming up in March, and I bet that you'll register us if people are interested. So that's just something to be aware of.
I also think if we did this correctly, or if right, that all of you now should be receiving your regular emails from MASC, right? So I think Amanda sent a heated email on our behalf, I think, and when Amanda tells you to jump, you jump.
The other thing to know, if you don't know, is that MASC has a listserv, a series of listservs, and they're excellent. And the one that I find very useful comes every morning, and it's education news, and it starts across the nation, across the Commonwealth, and locally. And so you really get a sense of what's happening around us. You don't have to read the articles even. If you just read the headlines every day for 6 months, I come away and I think, oh, we're so lucky to be in Rockport. So that's a good service that they provide. All right? Okay, the only other thing I would say is that I wrote down a couple of thoughts. Just listening tonight, I thought, boy, I know you have a list of things you want to tell us about. And I had a couple of things as well, and I wondered, do you just want us to reach out to you and let you know, it'd be great to hear about a couple of update things, and then you'll work them in wherever you
as
can.
We have a draft map of the agenda that we're going to go through actually tomorrow morning in a leadership team meeting, and that you, I think, have access to. So I think what's important is if Amy wants to reach out to you all, figure out, like, as we wind down with 4, 5, 6 more meetings, what do you think we need to touch on?
Because we're going to run out of meetings before we know it. And so I think it's important, if there's something that you really wanted to know about or hear about, or if you think we've missed something, this is probably the time to let me know, and then I'll pass it on. Okay? All right, anything else for discussion? Oh, phew. Do we have a need for executive session?
We do not.
All right. I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. We're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.